I remember the day everything unraveled as if it happened this morning. The first crack in our marriage arrived tucked inside an almost casual remark my wife Clarice made in our modest living room. She was 27, I was 30, and we'd been married 4 years, and I still clung to the naive conviction that our relationship rested on solid ground. Me running a successful family jewelry business with my brothers while she tended to the little cafe she adored. But the fault lines showed up in a single sentence. "There's a new guy who comes to the cafe," she said, and the tone in her voice held a small, dangerous thrill, the same hush she'd reserved for her favorite romance novels. She told me his name was Ivan. He was Serbian, tall, blonde, and apparently unbearably charming, and though that stung my sense of security, I tried to dismiss it as harmless curiosity. "Interesting, huh?" I said, reclining on the couch. "You see so many customers. What makes him stand out?" Clarissa's eyes brightened. "He's like a character from the books I read. Brooding, mysterious, but also sweet. He even reads Western novels. He says he's looking for a better life in the United States," she added, cheeks flushing at the thought of his accent. I forced a neutral expression, though a knot of unease tightened in my stomach. "That's nice. Always good to have a regular customer," I muttered, and the conversation shifted, but the discomfort lingered. Over the next few days, Clarissa's chatter about Ivan became almost constant. She came home glowing, rattling off little details about his opinions on the American workforce, his devotion to Tolstoy or Tolkien, and while part of me felt silly for being jealous, she was allowed friends after all, and I wasn't exactly the most sentimental husband. Another part recognized I had always been pragmatic, even controlling, and she'd long complained I didn't praise her enough. Not her new hair, not the pastries she tested for the shop. I wasn't the worst partner, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. About 3 weeks after she first mentioned Ivan, I dropped by the cafe unannounced in the late afternoon. The place had its usual crowd of students with novels and people hunched over laptops hunting free Wi-Fi. I spotted Clarice behind the counter in her flower-dusted apron, smiling, so I pulled out a small bouquet of tulips, a little gesture, and just as I was about to call her name the door swung open and a man with broad shoulders and meticulously styled blonde hair brushed past me, and with that inexplicable prick of rivalry men sometimes feel, I glanced sideways. He shot me a cursory look then turned to Clarice, his eyes lighting up as he held up her phone. "Clarice," he said in an unmistakably Eastern European accent, "you left your phone in the back." She beamed. "Oh my God, thank you, Ivan. I was looking for that. You're a lifesaver." The warmth in her voice knotted my gut. I cleared my throat and said, "Hey, honey," and she spun, startled to see me. "Oh, hey, you didn't say you were coming by." Ivan lingered in the corner with an amused half-smile. I offered a civil nod, but tension was already in the air. Clarice introduced us. "Ivan, this is my husband. He helps with some of the rent and all that." "So you're Ivan," I said, having heard about him. He extended a hand. "Pleasure to meet you. Your wife is very nice. She makes the best cappuccino in the city." I forced a short laugh and shook his hand, but his relaxed expression felt like appraisal, like he was measuring me for competition. When I stepped back, Clarice reached over the counter and touched my arm. "I'm kind of busy. Thanks for the flowers," she said, planted a quick peck on my cheek, and I felt dismissed. That evening while we cooked I pressed her for details and she shrugged it off. "He's just friendly, you have nothing to worry about." And when I admitted I felt uneasy she snapped, "Don't be ridiculous. I get to have friends, especially ones who love reading as much as I do. Sharing intellectual interests doesn't mean anything more." I didn't push further then, but something told me there was more. Less than a week later I sat at home flipping through a sports channel, waiting for Clarice to come back. She usually closed the cafe by 7, but it was already 9 and my phone showed no missed calls. At 9:15 she burst in, cheeks flushed from the cool air, hair mussed. "You're late," I said flatly as I rose. She rolled her eyes and dropped her purse on the table. "Sorry, the cafe was busy and I was showing Ivan around. He's new in town and had never had a proper New York-style slice, so we grabbed pizza and talked about books." "You went out with him alone?" I let the words hang. She raised a brow. "Don't start," she said. "I already know where your mind goes and you're wrong. He's a friend, and he might even be gay. He never said he's into women, he dropped hints, so get that suspicious look off your face." The "he might be gay" line felt too convenient. "It's after 9, Clarice. A message would have been nice," I said. She shot back, grabbing water from the fridge. "You never check in when you're stuck at the jewelry store until midnight, but I do one spontaneous thing and you act like I'm cheating." I am not your property. Get over yourself. Anger flared. I never called her property, but I couldn't ignore how it looked. You told me he's new, you read together, that's fine. But it's a problem when you're alone with him for hours, not telling me, and you come home like you've had the time of your life. She laughed, almost mocking. Oh sure, because heaven forbid I enjoy talking about books you barely care about. At least he listens. You get that glazed look when I bring up stories. I'm sorry reading is nerdy to you. I ran a hand down my face. Don't twist this into me not supporting your hobbies. I'm proud you opened the cafe. I just don't trust this guy. Gay or not, something about him sets off alarm bells. That's your problem, she said coldly. You can't control who I'm friends with, and I'm not going to stop seeing someone who's literally the only intellectual companion I have right now. With that she stormed to the bedroom and slammed the door, and I spent the night pacing, shame and rage coiling together. I wasn't proud of how controlling I felt, but that maybe he's gay's story smelled like a weak cover to keep me off her trail. A few days later I chose to confront her directly. I'd stopped by the cafe earlier and seen them huddled at a table, heads close, speaking in that intimate hush. When Clarice noticed me she jumped up, flustered, saying they were planning a reading club. Ivan barely looked up, gave me a thin smile, and that night at home I set aside the takeout and said, "We need to talk." She watched me warily. "About Ivan," I began. She clicked her tongue. "Yes, again? I saw how close you two were today. Don't spin this into nonsense about him being just a reading buddy. You've been spending too much time alone with him and you come home with that goofy grin. What do you want me to think?" Her face hardened. "I expect you to trust me. I'm your wife, not your hostage. I can have coffee conversation or read with whoever I want. If you hate reading, that's on you. Don't blame me for finding company." "I'm not blaming you for having a friend," I growled. "I'm blaming you for lying." She scoffed. "What lies?" she demanded. "From day one he's just a kind soul who loves books. He's polite, respectful, and compliments my cafe, everything I've wanted from you for months while you bury yourself in the family jewelry business. The last time you said something kind was our anniversary last year. Don't turn this into that." A pang of guilt tugged at me. Fine, maybe I haven't been lavishing compliments, but that doesn't justify— "My what?" she cut in, crossing her arms. "You're accusing me of cheating because I talked to a man about authors? That's your angle." I stared. "What am I supposed to think when I see him drape his arm around you or when you're locked in private conversation? Don't treat me like a fool." She leaned forward, voice trembling with anger. "You want me to promise I won't see him again? Is that it? Are you that controlling?" "Yes," I said flatly. "That's exactly what I want. Stop seeing him outside the cafe. If he drops in for a latte, fine, but no pizza nights, museum trips, or private reading sessions. If you want a reading club, do it at the cafe with others. No more sneaking off." Her jaw tightened. Tears welled though fury kept them back. "You think you can snap your fingers and decide who I'm friends with? I'm not only running a cafe you partly fund. I won't bow to your whims." I forced my voice to stay even though my heart pounded. "Call it bullying if you want, but I'm your husband and you owe me honesty. Either you stop the private outings or Clarice, we'll have bigger problems." Her expression shifted from fury to a hollow acceptance and she said, "Fine, you win. I won't see him outside the cafe." "Happy?" I sighed, relief and tension twisting together. She brushed past me and slammed the bedroom door, and I stood there breathing out, feeling more like a dictator than a partner, but convinced it was necessary because Ivan didn't sit right with me. Days went by and Clarice grew colder but outwardly complied. No late nights, no weekend museum trips, she said they were cancelled. Once she mentioned Ivan still came by the cafe, but only for coffee, and I tried to appear calm though worry gnawed at me. Then one afternoon I swung by to drop off a stack of promotional flyers for a cross-promotion with my brothers. I expected to leave them at the register and go, but Clarice wasn't behind the counter and an employee, Maria, nodded politely and said Clarice stepped out for a moment, and a flicker of suspicion took root, so I waited. Minutes later I saw them through the window walking up the sidewalk arm in arm, laughing together like a couple in love, and my heart slammed. I stepped aside so they wouldn't notice me. When Clarice's face found mine, panic spread across it and she unclipped her arm from Ivan's instantly, forcing a smile. Hey, she said. Ivan offered the same thin grin and said, "Hello again. his accent making it sound almost mocking. She'd promised not to do this, yet there she was linked to the very man she'd vowed to stop seeing, and I grabbed her arm. "Come on, we're going home," I said, and she tried to protest. "But I have a business," I barked, ignoring the customer stares. Ivan started to speak, but I whirled and fixed him with a savage glare. "Get away from her or you'll regret it." Maybe I looked insane, maybe I was, but that's how furious I felt. The cafe went quiet. Some regulars hovered uncertain whether to step in. Ivan pursed his lips and stepped back, red in the face, and Clarice flung her apron aside. "Fine," she snapped. "You want to humiliate me in front of my customers? Let's go." I practically dragged her to the car. The drive home was suffocating and we sat in heavy silence, the tension crackling. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel while she stared out the window with folded arms. Once inside our apartment I faced her, chest heaving. "What the hell was that? You promised you wouldn't meet him outside the cafe, and now I see you arm in arm." She threw her purse onto the couch. "Maybe because you keep stifling me," she snapped. "We're just friends. He says he's not into women. He flirts because that's his nature. Why can't you trust me?" "Because you keep lying," I roared. "You said you'd stop. No more sneaking around. You literally walked down the main street with him." "That's not sneaking, genius. If I wanted to hide it, I'd go down a deserted alley," she scoffed. "Don't be sarcastic. You promised you'd cut it off." She jabbed a finger toward my chest, eyes blazing. "I said I wouldn't see him outside the cafe, but you can't forbid him from walking me home if he wants a cappuccino. It's a free country. Stop trying to control my every step." My fists clenched and I had to bite back the urge to punch a wall. "Stop spinning it. I literally saw you linking arms with him," I said, and the argument spun on, each accusation sharpening the gulf between us. "That's not just a co-worker walking you, that's romantic body language. Do you think I'm blind?" She snapped, a bitter laugh cutting through. He wrapped his arm through mine. At the moment I didn't register it as anything monumental. "All right, I told you, he might be gay. Gay men do that with female friends all the time. It means nothing." I dragged both hands down my face in exhaustion. "I can't do this. You keep giving me the same line. Either you think I'm stupid or you're refusing to see the truth. Which is it?" She trembled with fury. "I can't believe this. All my life I've wanted someone who treasured my love of books and conversation. Now that I found a friend who shares that, you morph into some barbaric control freak. If you actually cared, you would join me sometimes when I read instead of making me feel so alone. But no, you want to cage me. Maybe I needed a way out. Have you ever thought of that?" A wave of guilt hit me, but anger washed over it. "Clarice, I might not be perfect, but I won't stand by and watch you cheat. That's the bottom line. It ends now or we're done." She stared, tears brimming, then with a brittle laugh wiped at her face. "We're already done, in case you missed it," she hissed. "You're not a husband anymore. You're some kind of dictator. I'm sick of it." Without another word she stormed to the bedroom and slammed the door so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. I stood frozen, heart thudding, torn between following her and walking out. Eventually I sank onto the couch, swallowed by a cyclone of hatred, jealousy, and betrayal. In the days after, Clarice vowed to steer clear of Ivan completely. "She'll set boundaries," she said. "He can still come to the cafe, but she won't let him walk her anywhere." Each promise felt like a flimsy bandage slapped over a gaping wound. My trust kept chipping away. Instinct told me something else was happening. Her gaze often seemed far away, and whenever her phone pinged she'd surge to read it, turning the screen from me. One night, curiosity and dread overcame me. While she slept I slid her phone from beneath her pillow, pulse racing. On WhatsApp there was a pinned conversation with Ivan. My worst fear confirmed. I opened it and the messages exploded across the screen like digital knives. Ivan 2:12 p.m. "I miss you, baby. Today was so much fun. Your husband suspect anything?" Clarice 2:15 p.m. "He's losing his mind. I had to promise I'd avoid you. God, I hate lying to him, but he's become so controlling." Ivan 2:20 p.m. "He is a fool. Yes, we keep going. Let him stay in the dark." As I scrolled, my heart pounded harder. Their chat wasn't innocent. They traded stolen kiss talk, secret trysts after the cafe closed, the thrill of keeping me, the jealous idiot, in the dark. There were mentions of hooking up in the back office, and I felt nauseous reading Clarice's giggling replies. This is so wrong, but you're right, it's exciting. He's turning into a total villain, so I don't even feel guilty. I nearly crushed the phone in my fist. Horror bloomed as I scanned on. Intimate moments described bluntly, mockery at my suspicions without proof. How she told me Ivan was gay sometimes just to shut me up. He found it hilarious. My hands shook while I exported the chat to a text file and emailed it to myself. I flipped through her photos. Several of them arm in arm, grinning in front of city landmarks she'd never mentioned visiting. She'd obviously blocked me from seeing them on social media. I had no idea. I screenshot everything and sent those images too. When I finished, I wiped the evidence from her phone and slid it quietly back onto the nightstand. That night I couldn't sleep. Fury churned. Learning how casually she'd used the "maybe he's gay" line left me sick. I felt like the planet's biggest fool. She had been living a parallel life, painting me as the controlling villain while she tangled with a manipulative flatterer who knew exactly which compliments to feed her. And yet, oddly, I grew more resolved to expose them both. If revealing the truth turned me into the villain, then fine. The next morning I confronted Clarice. She was rifling through kitchen cabinets when I stepped in, stony-faced. I didn't wait for hello. Stop, I snapped. I know everything. She blinked. Everything about what? Drop the act, I said, my voice cracking with anger. I read your messages with Ivan. The photos. The filthy details. All of it. Her cheeks went pale for a heartbeat. Terror flickered in her eyes. Then her face hardened and she slammed a cabinet shut. You went through my phone? She spat. You bet I did, I shot back. I found out how you've been lying, hooking up with him after hours, mocking me every step of the way, calling me a controlling jerk. I stepped closer, eyes on fire. So guess what? We're done. For a moment her lip trembled, tears pooling, but then her temper snapped. You had no right to snoop. That's invasion of privacy. I let out a harsh laugh. That's your response? Not denial. Not apology. Just whining because I found out the truth the wrong way. Give me a break. She shook with fury. Fine. You want a confession? Okay. Yes, I've been with him. But maybe if you'd been a better husband, someone who appreciated my interests, this wouldn't have happened. You've become obsessed with controlling me, calling me a liar every time I talk to someone else. You pushed me away. Don't you dare shift the blame onto me. I roared that I might not be perfect, but I never deserved to be lied to like this. You literally told him in your messages it felt so wrong but exciting. That's on you, Clarice. She flinched. A flicker of shame crossed her face. Believe whatever you want, she spat. You're the reason I needed to escape in the first place. My blood roared in my ears. Escape. That's the word she used. I gave you everything. Helped pay the cafe rent, tried to be supportive. Apparently not supportive enough of your hobby, right? So you fell for the first sweet talker who lavished compliments on your books and jumped into bed with him. Unbelievable. She shook her head and finally let tears spill. Fine. It's done. Have your meltdown, but know this. We reached this point because you never cared about what I love. All you care about is the business, the money, and making me fall in line. I can't breathe with you around. I exhaled, shoulders trembling, then said, breathe somewhere else. Get your things and leave my house. I'm filing for divorce. True to my word, I called a divorce lawyer the same day. Clarice stormed out in tears and curses and spent that night on a friend's couch. Over the next days I assembled every scrap of proof. My lawyer was stunned by how blatant the messages were. This is bulletproof, he told me. You're going to walk away with everything, especially if you can show infidelity caused the breakup. Amid the legal scramble I discovered something fouler. Ivan had a YouTube channel. Not just any channel, but one all about seducing neglected wives. Thousands of subscribers, videos bragging about conquests in accented English or sometimes Serbian, titles like How to Capture a Married Woman, Seducing an Unhappy Wife, Tips for Secret Affairs. I watched him speak to the camera with smug certainty, referencing a cafe owner bored with her controlling husband. My stomach flipped at the idea he was describing Clarice to the world. Worse, the channel linked to an OnlyFans that teased real videos of cheating wives. The previews blurred faces, but I recognized Clarice's silhouette in one. She might have been complicit or maybe tricked. Either way, the notion he profited off my wife's betrayal sparked a fresh blaze of rage. My lawyer urged calm. Finish the divorce, then consider civil suits. I tried to listen, but rage stayed. I fantasized about wiping that smug grin off Ivan's face. Clarice tried to reach me repeatedly. Her messages began apologetic and pitiful, then turned angry and bitter, blaming me for pushing her away. Finally, one morning she texted that she was pregnant. I stared at my phone, heart hammering. She insisted the baby was mine, saying we'd been intimate enough in past months, but I knew she'd slept with Ivan and the timeline was uncertain. One last confrontation came a week later when we bumped into each other at the cafe. She was supposed to be away but was there rummaging through boxes. She looked pale, exhausted, but defiant. "Is it true?" I asked in a low voice. "You're pregnant?" She pressed her lips and said yes. "And you're the father, obviously." I barked a short laugh. "Obviously. You've been sleeping with Ivan. Don't treat me like an idiot." She flushed. "There's no chance it's his," she stammered. "Well, it's complicated, but we never used protection and it was more frequent with you. I'm almost positive it's yours." "Almost positive," I repeated, tasting the words like acid. Not exactly comforting. Her eyes hardened. "You can do a DNA test after the baby's born. Until then, you're still my husband and this baby is still half yours. You should step up." I leaned in, voice laced with sarcasm. "Step up for a child that might be the product of your affair? Not a chance. We'll wait for a test. If it's mine, I'll decide how involved to be. If not, you can chase after your reading buddy." She trembled, tears threatening to spill. "You're so cruel," she said. "You made me this way." I snapped back, then walked out, ignoring her sobs. Time blurred. Divorce papers were served to Clarice in humiliating fashion at her cafe. In court she had no real defense. The evidence of her affair with Ivan was undeniable. My lawyer hammered the transactions in our joint account that matched suspicious gifts to Ivan, painting her as an unfaithful gold digger. I came across as the wounded husband, perhaps a bit controlling, but that paled beside her blatant betrayal. During proceedings she tossed me looks of pure hatred, as if I'd become the monster. Ironically, it was her treachery that had warped me into this. Ultimately, I kept the house, avoided alimony, and retained my share in the family jewelry business. She only got the cafe and the old sedan I'd bought her, and that was it. When the judge finalized the divorce, Clarice's father confronted me outside the courthouse, growling that I had a responsibility to the baby. I told him to back off. No one could force me to sign a birth certificate without a DNA test. He snarled that I was a villain who'd crushed his daughter's heart. I just stared him down, unflinching. The question of paternity loomed. I felt dread, not excitement. We arranged a test for after the birth. No point doing one early. Clarice had meltdowns, texted that I was heartless for abandoning her financially and emotionally. She sold the sedan to pay cafe rent and left voicemails full of rage, calling me controlling and evil. Each time I hung up or deleted them, unmoved. Still, I couldn't let Ivan go unpunished. He'd systematically hunted for wives like Clarice, and that knowledge burned. One afternoon after the divorce was final, I waited outside the cafe hidden in a borrowed SUV with tinted windows. I had two men from my rougher teenage days who owed me favors. We planned to confront Ivan and teach him a lesson. He emerged around closing, walking confidently down the street while filming himself on his phone, probably updating followers on another conquest. My blood boiled. Without hesitation, I signaled my friends and we stepped out. "Hey Ivan," I called. He froze mid-sentence and looked up. "It's me," I said, stepping closer. "Remember me, the controlling husband?" He tried for a grin. "You want trouble, friend? Because that's how you get trouble." My buddies, both large and masked, flanked him and grabbed his arms. He struggled, spitting foreign curses. Fear flashed in his eyes. I smirked and stepped in. "How about that YouTube channel of yours or that OnlyFans you're cashing in on, profiting from ruined marriages?" He sneered that he didn't destroy them. The wives came to him willingly. Maybe they wanted a real man, not a bully like me. I punched him with a quick jab to the jaw. He gasped as my friends pinned him to the wall. "You messed with my life," I hissed. "Filmed my wife, posted her online, bragged about seducing her. Now you pay." He tried to headbutt me, but one friend yanked him back and another landed a blow to his ribs. He yelped in pain. I snatched his phone from his trembling hand and hurled it onto the pavement, shattering it. "You think you can do that?" he wheezed. I have lawyers. I have resources, he blurted. Try me, I snarled. I'll sue you for alienation of affection. I'll tip off immigration. I have your texts mocking me. Don't test me. He paled. You have no right, he stammered. No, you don't get to film unsuspecting wives. I snapped. If I see a single video of Clarice or me on your sleazy channels, I'll drag you to court myself. You can't hide. I nodded to my guys and they let him drop to the pavement, clutching his bruised jaw, eyes wild. You threaten me? He spat. Damn right I do, I said, grabbing his collar. Now pack up your conquests and crawl back to whatever hole you came from, or else. He muttered he'll leave. Good, I said, stepping back. And if you ever come near Clarice again, I'll make you regret it. He glared, but the fight in him was gone. My friends and I left him there, phone destroyed, ego bruised, hopefully deterred from his twisted game in our city. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and Clarice's pregnancy advanced. She called repeatedly, sometimes desperate, sometimes furious. I refused to answer most calls. Eventually she gave birth to a boy. Her father tried once more to coerce me into signing the birth certificate. I told him to back off until DNA results were in. When the test finally arrived, the result was unequivocal. 0% chance I was the father. I read those words and laughed bitterly. All the months of drama, her insistence it was mine. What a joke. The child belonged to Ivan or some other lover she hadn't named. Either way, it wasn't my problem. I texted Clarice a screenshot of the results. We're finished. Don't contact me again.